You see the collection that I own? That is our collection. It's a BNJ collection. We needed to rehouse it because we couldn't protect it in this building because the building is old and falling apart, and that's why we need some funding. If anybody knows if anyone wants to do an endowment, we've been looking for it since 1925. Haven't gotten one yet. And Thomas Paine deserves a big endowment. So if anybody wants their name on the building, this is the way to do it. Some more preliminary remarks and we'll get started right away. There will be lunch coming catered out there in that room, so feel free after 11 to 11:30 we'll be set up. You can just get up, take some food, come back and sit down and eat while you're watching. There's drinks, if you get thirsty, there's lots of water and soda on ice. And what else? Okay. You have a list of the speakers. After each speaker finishes, we're going to allow time for discussion. Anybody want to make comments or have questions, we'll take as much time as possible. But again, we have to stay on the, engaged. Okay. I need to turn up the audio. Hold on a second. All right, sorry for that. Discussion after each one. I'll cut off discussion at some point when we start running over because we need to finish on time. And that's it. The speakers today, we were seeking out a very eclectic presentation, and it is. And we also emphasized no professionals, no professors, no book authors yet to talk. They're usually done with
Speak a little bit louder, please.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll talk louder. So we have a good collection of people, very smart, very talented researchers, and we're presenting some new information today. And write down your questions, we'll deal with them. And remember that we'll be ending at 2:30. So we'll be staying around after that. If you want to stay and have a long, deep discussion, you want to see the exhibits then, we'll do that at that time. Okay, our first speaker, not on the list, is Lyne Hervey-Passée. Did I say that right? You can correct me.
Yes.
She's from France, University of
Limoges and Paris.
Limoges
And Paris.
Okay. And she's going to do a presentation on the documentary she's filming, and we're filming now as well. So, Lynn?
The first time I had heard about Thomas Paine was 11 years ago while watching a documentary around 2 at night on French TV. The documentary featured the Society of the Friends of the Blacks. Among the names of Robespierre, Condorcet, Brissot, there was the one of Thomas Paine that I did not know. Something that particular night happened, I cannot yet fully explain. Because since then, I've started to browse into Thomas Paine's life. The more I was discovering, the more I wanted to do. What first struck me back then, when researching on Paine, was the amount of things accomplished by one single man, and above all, his writings. was captured, by this way he had with words, because Paine uses very few words to make his readers see things as they are. Paine shows the way how to think clearly. The fact that in the 18th century he could create short, simple, and powerful sentences, making them understandable by a huge number of people, has impressed me. And so I asked myself, how come this man, who could easily introduce images in his words with a verbal writing, with so much meaning in his sentences that had led to rise consciousness, could have been cast away in the shadows over centuries? 11 years after discovering this revolutionary figure, I am now enrolled into a research and creation PhD. On a scientific and theoretical basis, I am working on the counter-hegemonic discourse and visual writing in Paine's book. As for the creative part, I have written a manuscript entitled Moi, Thomas Paine, and submitted it to publishers in France. Right now, I am filming a documentary with my fellow PhD candidate Yvan Chasson. The script of the documentary is still being processed. I will first talk about the theoretical work I have done so far. Then I will introduce some aspects of my creative work. My research consists in highlighting the theory of geocriticism in Thomas Paine's writing. Geocriticism is the representation of space in literature. In France, the specialist of geocriticism is Bertrand Westphal, one of my PhD supervisors. I find this theory perfectly fits in understanding Paine's work because Paine is known as a transnational thinker. He was a prolific writer in England, in France, in the 13 American colonies, then in the United States of America. Using geocriticism in my work aims at showing how space impacts the way of one writes. Text, for instance, won't be the same if written from Ancien Régime or Revolution in France, from a staymaker or a Tory, from being jailed or free, from the state of slavery or from the position of a free man. Space is not only seen from a geographical point of view, but also from a physical and psychological one. Geocriticisms reveal to be accurate in the study of Paine's books and many of his texts. Paine not only wrote on different territories, but he also wrote from different states of mind, threatened, jailed, compelled, and most of the time he wrote in reaction to a special situation. I defend the idea of Thomas Paine being obliged to take actions and write. Because despite he was in contact with the elite of that time in England, in France, and in the United States, Paine also expressed himself being located in the margins of society. In that extent, Paine's text and the context in which he created his writings led me to visit another theory, the one known as writings actions, developed by the interdisciplinary research group on literary history. Writing actions are the fact for one person to be in no position but to write as an emergency to tell their truth and defend their rights. In Paine's case, this emergency was to defend the rights of those oppressed. Writing's action can be found in most of Paine's works. I just will choose 3 of them. The case of the excise officers written in 1772, the 19 Messidor Year 3 speech, a speech held on the 7th of July 1795, in front of the National Convention about the proposed Constitution of 1795, and the letter signed a slate addressed to Thomas Jefferson, nearly around Paine's death. In the first text, the pamphlet, Paine is the voice of the English excise officers. He had been appointed by the excise officers as their representative. Paine is therefore writing from a place of holding the responsibility of his fellow workers' voices. The second one is a speech that he wrote in English. It was literally translated and pronounced by the French National Convention Secretary before the National Convention. Paine did not pronounce his speech himself, as he didn't speak French despite more than a decade spent in the country. Paine, who has been freed from the Luxembourg prison 8 months before the speech, was still very weak. His speech was to criticize the 1795 Constitution, as this text was excluding the vast majority of French people from citizenship. In the last one, the letter A Slave, Paine embodied a slave to denounce the hypocrisy of politicians being as well slave owners, like Thomas Jefferson. Once again, Paine, in this emergency to write for others, take action, here under the features of a slave. In all these texts, Thomas Paine transgresses the lines and frontiers of 1. A simple worker,